Hi everyone, I am Janeline A. Incargas, a second-year college student in the course of Bachelor of Elementary Education. So my report is all about the revised Bloom's of Taxonomy of Educational Objectives. The Bloom's Revised Taxonomy. The Taxonomy of Cognitive Objectives. It was developed by Benjamin Bloom in the year 1950s. It means of expressing qualitatively different kinds of thinking. It has been adopted for classroom use as a planning tool. It continues to be one of the most universally applied models. It provides a way to organize thinking skills into 6 levels, from the most basic to the more complex level of thinking. In the year 1990s, Lauren Anderson, a former student of Bloom, revised the taxonomy. As a result, a number of changes were made. According to Paul, in the year 2000, learning to think, thinking to learn. The word taxonomy means classification or structure. Revised Bloom's taxonomy emphasizes students' learning outcomes through the use of refined terms. The revised taxonomy is a refreshed take on Bloom's taxonomy from 1956, which examined cognitive skills and learning behavior. It also refers to the emphasis on 2 learning domains that make up educational objectives: cognitive or knowledge, and affective or attitude. The revised taxonomy focuses on 6 levels such as remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. These verbs refers to the cognitive process that students encounter and the knowledge that they work with. The first thing people would recognize is the different terminology. The revised version changes the name of each of the 6 levels. So as you can see, there is a changes of structure in the Bloom's of taxonomy. The 2 levels are essentially swapped from the old to the new version. The revision emphasizes the use of taxonomy as a tool for alignment of curriculum planning, instructional delivery, and assessment. Additionally, the revision is aimed at a broader audience. The original taxonomy was viewed as a tool that can best applied in the younger grades at school. The revised version is more universal and easily applicable at elementary, secondary, as well as adult training. The revised taxonomy moves the evaluation stage to the new term into the highest element, which is creating. So for example, let's go back here. The lowest level of the original term is knowledge, was renamed and classified as remembering. It is also important to note the change from nouns to verb in order to describe the different level of the taxonomy. The names of the major cognitive process categories were changed to indicate action because thinking implies active engagement. At the second to the highest level of the revised version, people defined, support, justify, and evaluate their opinion in this information. And the highest level, people generate new ideas, create new products, or construct a new point of view. This change was made because the taxonomy is viewed as a hierarchy reflecting increasing complexity of thinking, and creative thinking or creating level is considered as a more complex form of thinking than critical thinking or evaluating level. Knowledge is an outcome or product of thinking. It is not a form of thinking. Consequently, since the word knowledge inaccurately described a category of thinking, it was replaced by the verb remembering. The categories are ordered from simple to complex and from concrete to abstract. The arrow represents the cognitive levels in Bloom's original taxonomy, arranged in ascending order. Below each Bloom's revised terms is a list of the verbs that we commonly use to create learning objectives. As you can see, there are following tables that shows the categories in cognitive processes, alternative names, and definition in every level of the revised terms. The cognitive dimension process, level 1, category 1. The category 1 is remember, which defined as retrieve knowledge from long-term memory. Its cognitive processes are recognizing and recalling. In recognizing, its alternative name is identifying, which means locating knowledge in long-term memory that is consistent with presented materials. Next is recalling. Alternative name is retrieving, which means retrieving relevant knowledge from long-term memory. Next is level 2, category 2, which is understand. Its definition is to construct meaning from instructional messages, including oral, written, and graphic communication. Its cognitive processes are interpreting, exemplifying, classifying, summarizing, interpreting, comparing, and explaining. In interpreting, the alternative names are clarifying, paraphrasing, representing, and translating, and its definition is changing from one form of representation to another. And exemplifying, its alternative names are illustrating and instantiating. Its definition is to finding a specific example of illustration of a concept or principle. The next is classifying. Its alternative names are categorizing or subsuming. Its definition is determining that something belongs to the category. The next is summarizing. Its alternative names are abstracting and generalizing. Its definition is abstracting a general theme or major points. Next is inferring. Its alternative names are concluding, extrapolating, interpolating, predicting, and its definition is drawing a logical conclusion from presented information. Next is comparing. Its alternative names are constructing, mapping, and matching. Its definition is detecting correspondence between two ideas, objects, and the likes. And last is explaining. Its alternative names are constructing models. Its definition is constructing a cause and effect model of a system. The next is level 3, category 3, which is apply. Its definition is applying a procedure into a familiar task. Its cognitive processes are executing and implementing. In executing, its alternative name is carrying out, which its definition is applying a procedure to a familiar task. In implementing, its alternative name is using, applying a procedure to an unfamiliar task. Next is level 4, category 4, which is analyze. Definition is to break materials into its constituent parts and determine how the parts relate to one another and to an overall structure of purpose. Its cognitive processes are differentiating, organizing, and attributing. In differentiating, its alternative names are discriminating, distinguishing, focusing, and selecting. Its definition is distinguishing relevant from irrelevant parts or important parts of presented material. In organizing, its alternative names are finding coherence, integrating, outlining, parsing, and structuring, which means to determining how elements fit or function within a structure. And last is attributing. Its alternative name is deconstructing, which means determine a point of view, bias, values, or underlying presented material. Next is level 5, category 5, which is evaluate. Its definition is to make a judgment based on the criteria and standards. Its cognitive processes are checking and critiquing. So in checking, the alternative names are coordinating, detecting, monitoring, and testing. Its definition is detecting inconsistencies or fallacies within a process or product, determining whether a process or product has internal consistency, detecting the effectiveness of a procedure as it is being implemented, and the critiquing. Its alternative name is judging, detecting its inconsistencies between a product and external criteria, determining whether a product has external consistency, detecting the appropriateness of a procedure for a given problem. So the last is level 6, category 6, which is create. Definition is to put elements together to form a coherent or functional whole. Recognize elements into a new patterns or structure. Its cognitive processes are generating, planning, and producing. In generating, its alternative name is hypothesizing. Coming up with alternative hypotheses based on criteria. Next is planning. Its alternative name is designing, devising a procedure for accomplishing some task. And the last is producing rather. Its alternative name is constructing. Definition is inventing a product. The taxonomy table helps to organize learning outcomes by level of cognitive complexity and level of conceptual knowledge. The categories are on a continuum of increasing cognitive complexity from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. A learner who is able to achieve a higher level thinking skills is understood to have already mastered the lower level of thinking skills. For example, a learner who is able to apply a procedure will have already attained lower thinking skills or knowledge, or also known as recall and comprehension or understand. So the knowledge dimension contains 4 categories in a continuum of concrete knowledge to abstract knowledge. The revised taxonomy includes a 4th category called metacognitive knowledge, which encompasses students' awareness, control, and regulation of their own cognition. The inclusion of the metacognition reflects research that shows how knowledge of one's own cognition and the ability to strategically control one's own cognition plays an important role in learning, according to Anderson and Krathwohl in the year 2001. So this table shows the knowledge dimension, such as factual knowledge, defined as the basic elements students must know to be acquainted with a discipline or solve problem in it. Factual knowledge, the interrelationship among the basic elements within a large structure that enable them to function together. Procedural knowledge, how to do something, method of inquiry, and criteria for using skills, algorithms, techniques, and methods. And last is metacognitive knowledge, knowledge of cognition in general as well as awareness and knowledge of one's own cognition. So the 4 types of knowledge help determine what to teach and how to teach it, or instructional content and instructional method and activities. So the list are examples of the potential activities and products in remembering. Make a list of the main events of the story. Make a timeline of events. Make a facts chart. Write a list of any pieces of information you can remember. What animals were in the story. Make a chart showing. Make an acrostic. Recite a poem. So next are the list of potential activities and products in understanding. So cut out or draw pictures to show a particular event. Illustrate what you think the main idea may have been. Make a cartoon strip showing the sequence of events. Write and perform a play based on the story and retell the story in your own words, and so on and so forth. So in applying, the potential activities and products are: construct a model to demonstrate how it works, make a diorama to illustrate an event, make a scrapbook about the areas of studies, make a paper match map or clay model to include relevant information about an event, take a collection of photographs to demonstrate a particular point, make up a puzzle or a game about the topic, write a textbook about this topic for others, dress a doll in national costume, make a clay model, paint a mural using the same materials, and design a marketing strategy for your product using a known strategy as a model. In analyzing, the potential activities and products are as follows. Design a questionnaire to gather information. Write a commercial to sell a new product. Make a flowchart to show a critical stages. Construct a graph to illustrate selected information. Devise a play about the study area. Make a family tree showing relationships. Write a biography of a person studied. Prepare a report about the area of study. Conduct an investigation to produce information to support a view. And last is to review a work of art in terms of form, color, and texture. Next, in evaluating the potential activities and products are the following. Prepare a list of criteria to judge. Conduct a debate about an issue of special interest. Make a booklet about 5 rules you see as important. Convince others. Then form a panel to discuss views. Write a letter to advising on changes needed. Write a half-yearly report and prepare a case to present your view about. So the last but not the least is creating. The potential activities and products are: invent a machine to do a specific task, design a building to house your study, create a new product, give it a name and plan a marketing campaign, write about your feelings in relation to, write a TV show, play, puppet show, role play, song or pantomime about, design a record, book or magazine cover for, sell an idea, devise a way to, make up a new language and use it in an example. So now let's proceed to the Bloom's Taxonomy assessment that guides the teacher in classifying the cognitive level the students in answering the given and asked questions. So the following are assessment or questioning for each revised term. And remembering, the following questions are: what happened after, how many, what is, who was it that, can you name, find the meaning of, describe what happened after, who spoke to, which is true or false. Question for understanding. Can you write in your own words? How would you explain? Can you write a brief outline? What do you think could have happened next? Who do you think? What was the main idea? Can you clarify? Can you illustrate? Does everyone act in the way that? Thus, in applying, the following questions are: do you know of another instance where? Can you group by characteristics such as? Which factors would you change if? What questions would you ask of? From the information given, can you develop a set of instruction about? In analyzing, the list of questions are as follows. Which events could not have happened? If happened, what might the ending have been? How is similar to? What do you see as other possible outcomes? Why did changes occur? Can you explain what must have happened when? What are some of the problem of? Can you distinguish between? What were some of the motives behind? What was the turning point? What was the problem with? And evaluating, the questions are as follows. Is there a better solution to? Judge the value of. What do you think about? Can you define your position about? Do you think is a good or bad thing? How would you have handled? What changes to would you recommend, and so on and so forth. The last is question for creating. Can you design a to? Can you see a possible solution to? If you had access to all resources, how would you deal with? Why don't you devise your own way, and so on and so forth. So that's all for the revised Bloom's of Taxonomy of Educational Objectives. I hope you learned something, and thank you so much for joining me on my virtual report.